Hey folks, this is Alex with the Community Project in collaboration with KGNU. Over the last year, we've made it our mission to try to understand the homeless situation within Boulder County. We've had the opportunity to volunteer with 4 local nonprofits that provide services to the unhoused community. We've been fortunate to build relationships with truly incredible people, both providing and receiving services. And what we've learned is as inspiring as it is heartbreaking. Through this series of conversations, we'll attempt to impart our experience onto you, our community. Thank you for your time and attention. This is Ground Up. On today's episode, we speak with Heidi Grove and Trevor Baringer from the Division of Homeless Systems and Coordinated Response, which is a branch of the Boulder County Housing Department, as well as our friends Kerby and Beth, a couple that are currently experiencing homelessness in Boulder County. We start with a selection of conversation with Heidi and Trevor, where we're discussing some of the challenges that individuals experiencing homelessness encounter while they're trying to complete their initial steps required to find employment and hopefully, eventually, a home.
A lot of the folks I've been talking to have expressed a lot of frustration with just simple things, trying to get their ID, birth certificates, which I've been learning that
it's a whole process.
It's a whole process that you have to go through before you can get a job, before you can get housed, before any of the rewards happen. You have to get some of these lower level accomplishments under your belt, I guess.
Yep.
Our outreach workers, majority of their time is getting that documentation.
Yes.
And that's not an easy process either.
No, and especially if you're somebody's like, for me, prime example, if I were to lose my birth certificate, I would be screwed because I was born on a military base. So that's a whole nother layer of trying to track down, because not only do I have to go to North Carolina because I was born in Fort Bragg, but then you have to go through the military system, which is separate from the state system. So, when you have folks that have these kinds of barriers, it becomes really complex and complicated. And even if they had all their documents and say they got their job, if you don't have a bed to put your head on every night and you have a 5 a.m. shift, what happens if you oversleep because you were too busy trying to get some rest, and it's not a safe place to rest? And then you're going to your job. And I know for me, if I don't get 8 hours of sleep at night, I am not functional.
And it seems to be hard, but even though you get the sleep, you have to get up and find a place to shower.
Yes.
Use the restroom, have your clothes cleaned. and
then if you're
travel to
tired,
work.
and if you're tired, you're probably not in the best mood. And so if, say, you're in a customer service or customer facing position, people, customer service jobs are one of the most thankless jobs. I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
You get to experience that person you've never met's worst day. And so if you're really tired and you're really cranky and you're frustrated and you're in survival mode and you're getting attacked by somebody, you're probably going to respond in a negative way, and then you lose your job. And so then you start all over again.
Now let's hear from Kerby, describing his firsthand experience of the trials unhomed folks face while trying to navigate our current bureaucratic systems.
The biggest thing that we found out here is people don't have IDs, and they don't have access to their IDs. And ever since COVID, it seems like, Colorado, I remember they used to be able to get your ID right away, laminated with your card out the door. And since COVID, it seemed like they stopped doing that. I don't know if that's everywhere, but that's a big deal with people out here. And with them not being able to have an ID, and they're not able to progress. So they can't get a phone, they can't step up, they can't get a job, they can't motivate to do what they need to do. So what are they going to do? Well, you got to do what you got to do to survive, right? You're going to go in a store, you're going to eat what you got to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That being said, on the flip side of that, if we can get back to that, those are little steps that can help people. Let's get that going again. Let's get easier access to IDs. Well, to have an ID, you got to have an ID to get a phone. You got to have a phone to get a job. These days, to do labor ready and all that, you do everything through your app. Yeah. Since COVID, everything's on apps. You take bids on your app. You don't go into the store, you don't go into the shop and sit at the shop and early board at 4:30 in the morning. First bird there gets the job. You do it all on your phone and you take bids. So you don't get a phone if you don't have an ID or an address. To have an ID, you got to establish who you are. And everything these days is ID. You have to have an ID. You know what I mean?
When individuals do get their identification, the challenges don't end there. Finding and maintaining a job when you don't have a place to sleep, bathe, use the restroom, or do laundry exacerbates the difficulty tremendously. Here, Heidi and Trevor explain the available support options and elaborate on the difficulty the individual faces when trying to find employment and the importance of wraparound services for successful housing placements.
I've actually talked to a lot of folks that have gotten jobs, and then a week later, they don't have jobs again. And it seems to be a pretty severe recurring experience for them. And I'm not sure what we have for supporting them in that. Do we have a workforce team?
We do. We have Workforce Boulder County. But again, without a stable place to stay, how are you going to maintain that? Like, that's just a reality.
Does Workforce actually help them find jobs? And
they do. There's also training programs that Workforce can help pay for. We also had a partnership with the CLO Foundation. The CLO Foundation, which is based here in Boulder, will actually pay for someone to do they'll pay the scholarship, if you will, for a trade-based skill sets, whether that's carpentry, welding. We even got them to do peer certification, paying for those because you have to go through a 2-week course. So there are opportunities and avenues. And then you also have Bridge House. So the one thing that I think is nice about Bridge House, even though it is a work first model, they provide the housing. So
they have limited beds.
And they have limited beds too. So, and it's the same with like our work with Project Recovery. It is a stable house coupled with treatment. So when we hear people talk about like treatment first or work first, it only is as good as the person's like meeting you there, and they have stability to process those. When you're unpacking addiction and behavioral health, the underlying root cause of that is trauma. And so in order to get down to that base, it's really heavy on your system, both mentally and physically. So without that stability factor, so that you have space to, okay, I just did a lot of really heavy work on myself today. I need to decompress and not like go back to addictions, not go back to all these old habits. That is why there is a foundation. Like if we think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you can't get anywhere up in the pyramid unless you have food in your stomach, because food nourishes your brain, you're hydrated, and you have a safe and stable place to stay, because otherwise you're just in fight or flight mode.
This is why housing first is the art.
Yes.
And you get someone stabilized in an environment where they can decompress, they can feed themselves, they can relax and take time and feel safe, and then move forward with therapies. And
the one thing that we did not do right as a country was we kind of took a housing only approach.
Yeah. Housing only. Yeah.
That's the biggest misconception is folks say that housing first is if we get them to a place, then all their problems are fixed. And in reality, what housing first was meant to be was housing with supports. Get them into a place because, to Heidi's point, if they don't feel safe in their environment, the functionality just plummets. And so get them into a place that they feel safe, secure, but then also have that wraparound support for them. What do they need? Do they need workforce training? Do they need recovery supports, mental health care, things like that? So it's really... So when housing first is the argument, what we're really trying to say is we're not saying it's the only thing that's going to be the magic wand. It's our first step.
Okay. It's housing and supports. Like, it's not just like housing and good luck. It's housing and progressive engagement. It's ongoing, right? Like when we're talking about a population that has been so damaged by systems over the course of their lifetime, and it takes time to build trust. Like, there is that engagement factor, even post-housing, that really is so critical. And, it's got to be targeted interventions, and also with client-led good discussions. Like, just saying, hey, I see that your alcoholism is what caused your homelessness, so I'm going to target that without the client. It's like NA, right? NA and AA. people can go into a meeting all day, but if they're not willing to say, like, my name is Heidi and I'm an alcoholic and I've been sober for X number of years, which is always the standard introduction at a support meeting, then you're not really going to get very far.
Yep. It's admit you have a problem.
Yes.
And seek help, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't seem like there's much of that happening. It doesn't seem like there's a ton of wraparound services.
It's been probably the least invested, and that's across the country.
Yeah.
So when you look at, like, everybody talks about Finland, right? Yeah. Finland is the gold standard. Yeah. Yep. But Finland, first, they have a totally different, like, system than us. They have universal health care. They have, government supportive social housing. And so they have a different funding stream, different governmental infrastructure, but they really did say, okay, we're going to invest significantly in affordable housing, but we're also going to come alongside with all of these universal supports from a healthcare and a behavioral health perspective. A lot of people see Finland as like, oh, it happened overnight. They started building affordable housing a decade ago.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So it's taken them 10 years to get to the place where they're at.
So if we start right now, we can be done in 2035.
Maybe, but not just us, Boulder County. Like, this needs to be a national effort. And so when you ask, like, so Trevor talked about what he does, and my role is really to pull those different systems together and think about how we integrate. And then I also work with our regional partners and our state partners, and then also federal. So really making
and international.
Sure. And now international too. Canada. So, like, it's a whole societal shift that needs to occur.
What does that look like? What do we have to do as a society to make this work?
We need to say that these things, like investing in behavioral health, investing in affordable housing, investing in systems that actually produce positive outcomes upstream and then hopefully never downstream, but upstream is really where it's at. Like, we say that, like, here's a prime example. We always say that children's the future, that we should invest in our children. When budget constraints happen, what are the first things to get cut?
The schools.
Yeah. After school programs, the school system, nutrition in the schools. So is it that we really do value that? That's a question.
Yeah. And the reality is, in simple terms, we're all one bad day from needing these supports. To Heidi's point, I mean, one bad medical accident that your insurance doesn't cover, it can put someone onto the streets, and has. And so when we take a step back and say, this could be me, this could be my family, this could be my situation, and reconcile with that realization, hopefully that can change the mindset of, we do need to invest in these. It's not handouts, it's not enablism, it's, this could be my reality.
And I've actually personally experienced this, and I know Trevor knows this. Right after I had my daughter, I lost my job. And, it's really hard to find a new job with a newborn.
Right.
And so I've actually been on TANF. I've had CCAP. I've been on SNAP, Medicaid. And it is, I got to tell you, walking into that when I talk about humility, walking into that human services building, knowing that I have spent my entire career helping people get on these benefits, and feeling so ashamed that I was in that space now. I feel bad for my tech. Like, I just literally started crying. And so I think that those are the pieces that we need to also, like, realize, to Trevor's point, you are one step away.
Yeah, we really don't have that safety net anymore for anybody. It's getting worse.
It is getting worse.
What do you suspect are the results of this, the new budget that's probably going to get passed?
So, I don't want to think about it.
Just to prepare people for
homelessness is going to get worse.
Homelessness is very bad right now.
Yeah.
It is getting worse, and it's going to get progressively worse.
And give us a sketch of what that looks like.
Okay, so here's a prime example. So during COVID, we had the emergency rental assistance program where we dumped billions of dollars into keeping people housed with like back pay and rental assistance. Nationally, we saw a decline in new people falling into homelessness. Then that went away. And now, ding, 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 we're seeing a huge significant increase in those that are first time to homeless and new.
Mm-hmm.
Our vulnerable populations are at risk. We're continuing to lose our safety net programs, and with the increasing economic insecurity, we're going to find our homeless population growing. As a community, we have the ability to mitigate the extent of how we're impacted by these variables. Life on the street is dangerous. The emotional trauma from the constant underlying fear for your physical and emotional safety simply exacerbates the distress and adds tremendous difficulty to the activities of daily living. Here, Kerby and Beth recount their direct experience of the trials of everyday street life.
What's the scene like? Is it dangerous?
Yes. I've dealt with a stalker, and then the kidnapping. He got shot with a CO2 gun. Someone tried to pull a knife out on him. So, yeah, people get sad.
And that was just yesterday.
No, I mean, yeah, that was just, tune in for tomorrow. Tune in, Yeah, it's like sit down with a bag of popcorn, man. We don't have TV out here. You don't need it. You can sit down and watch the action every day. The street out here, that's the thing is we have our own justice and it all happens after dark. So unfortunately around after dark, when the sun goes down, we've seen people walking there. When we first got here, what was it? Some guy got stabbed for walking his dog by some crazy guy with a knife.
Jeez.
And the guy was walking his dog through the park, and some guy was coming through the park and was just slashing people and slashed the guy. Okay. That was the first night I think we showed up here in town. We're like, holy crap. Okay. Wow. And then you can just hear, it gets that way sporadically, and at night, and unfortunately, I'm sorry, but the people that are stuck on some of these drugs like the fentanyl and those things, man, you see the horrors of it when they don't have it and they're going through detox for it, and the monsters they become, and they yell, they scream, they have tantrums, and they will like flash mob destroy, and they're like Cujo, and it gets to the point where they come at you to where you have to put them down. It's that bad. Violently, you have to seriously protect yourself and put them down. And that's the sick part of it is you have to distinguish out here is that that they're sick and that they're in detox and that mentally they're not there, but they're coming at you with a weapon too. They're trying to hurt you or your mate. So you know what I mean? At that point, it's self-defense. So you know what I mean?
These are people probably.
Yeah, and there's that you see out on the street every day, right at the feeds, and you know what I mean? You see them under the bridge all the time getting high when you pass by them. You see them every day. So you know who they are and what they are, and it's just a shame, but that's the life, man. That's what you see every day out here on the street,
That has to take its toll on you.
Yeah, it does.
Psychologically.
Yeah, it does.
I feel like I'm at work.
And a lot of that is these people are traumatized because they're getting chased around every week, and they don't, since it's become illegal, to be homeless, we're being chased around like refugees in our own country. And so every week we get told to move around.
When you say it's illegal, you're referring to the camping ban?
Yeah, well, and the Supreme Court making it illegal to be, homeless and camping, that in that aspect too, the Grants Pass thing with Oregon, the whole thing that's how bad it's getting, and all the states are jumping on board now with that, to where they're making it illegal and for camping, and they're using that as an excuse to chase the homeless around and make us refugees, man, in our own country. Every week the psychological of that, the trauma of that we see. And that a lot of these people are already stressed to the max. And when you put that on top of them, they snap. And then they become these walking dead zombies that are on drugs that are stuck underneath and that's what we have to try to walk through and fish through every day.
You guys are out here, you're trying to help folks when you can, right? What does that look like? How do you help people out?
Well, it's first off, it's no judgment, and you just tell them that we have water, food, medical supplies, blankets, and we treat them like humans. You know what I mean? Talk to them just like me and you, bro, and it doesn't matter. And when they got scabs on their face and they ain't got no shoes, hey, man, come here, bro, sit down. We talk to you like you're my brother. And sometimes that's all they need is just somebody to care, like just enough to care about them that much. And that's when they see that, then they're attracted to us. And then because nobody out here talks to them like that. And that's why they're attracted to us, you know, and the persona on the street is when they see people on the street, they see us like that. And we look like drug dealers because everybody comes to our car, but they don't understand. We're not drug dealers. We're drug dealers for God. Come and see me and talk to me. Even the police know who we are. Everybody knows who we are and what we're doing. You know what I mean? We're giving out supplies. We're giving out love. We're trying to bring people to church. We're trying to make that connection between the police and the homeless. You know what I mean? That's what we're doing. But when you see us from afar, you see a crowd of people around my car. That's what you see. Yeah. You know what I mean? Oh, those are the bad guys, right? Because they're all the homeless. And they're around that guy's car. He's got to be the drug dealer. You know what I mean? He's got to be the guy that's influencing it. He's got to be the one, right? They don't understand. They don't want to come up and talk to you. They don't know. It's perception. And their perception of who you are. And that's what's wrong in the world. Right there. That's one of our biggest things, right? We're profiling people. You don't even know who you are.
Living on the street doesn't make you a criminal. It makes you vulnerable. And people will do what they have to do to feel safe. As a community, we can choose to end this experience of trauma and help the individuals heal. So how do we make changes? Heidi and Trevor elaborate.
What can we do specifically? Do you guys have some ideas about how we can handle this situation? I know you're coordinating with everybody, and you know everybody here. So what can we do as a community to maybe change some of the laws and get some different actions in place?
I would say first and foremost, educate yourself. Yeah. Like educate yourself. And, you know, I've always, Trevor knows this, I always challenge us to think about policy from a 360 lens, because there's so many times that we put policies in place and we don't think about the unintended consequences. And then we're like, oops, sorry. But we should be like, as we're drafting policy, think about, okay, who could this negatively impact? And so if you're like, this could negatively impact, at least you're doing it with intent as opposed to not. Mm-hmm. So I would say start there.
Can we change how the housing vouchers are utilized? Is that something we could?
It depends on the funding stream. So this is where it gets really complicated, right? Like who holds the purse? So if it's HUD, then that's a congressional act. We also have locally funded vouchers where we do have say, right? Because local tax dollars allow the local funding stream to dictate how they prioritize and leverage those. And then there's also state housing vouchers that come out of state taxes. And there's way more flexibility in those kind of state level and below funding streams than there is federal. We're constantly looking for like where other people have done things well. And if they have literally burner boilerplates that we can look at and adapt to our local community needs.
It seems like we do need to make this a national emergency.
We did after World War I and World War II.
Yeah. So maybe we can do it without a war.
Maybe. I mean, that would be lovely.
But yeah, I think folks just need to educate and figure out where their values are and support our nonprofits and folks that are doing the work and again, have their voices heard as far as what they believe is the right thing to do, especially when addressing the homelessness situation. Our big thing is we are doing what we can with the resources at hand, but at the same time as folks are struggling.
It seems that homelessness isn't necessarily a byproduct of civilized society. It seems to be a choice. But not typically the choice of the individual experiencing homelessness, but of ours, as a community as a whole. If you'd like to find out more or how you could assist, please contact us at info@thecommunityproject.org. To watch the full interviews or to contribute to our fundraising campaign, check out our website at thecommunityproject.org. You can access our social media and donate from there. When contributing, click the donate button, and from the drop-down, select services. 100% of the donations specified as services will go directly to provide for individuals experiencing homelessness. We would like to thank our sponsors for helping to make our outreach work possible. Arc Thrift Stores, El Dorado Springs, Super Team Protein Bars, Conscious Alliance, the Colorado Lions Eyeglass Recycling Center, and the Denver Lions Club. and of course, KGNU. A special thanks to our service organization partners, Deacon's Closet, Colorado Friendship, Annie and Millie's Place, Sock It To 'Em, and City Pack. Ground Up's music was written and performed by Blaze Keene, a gentleman currently experiencing homelessness in Boulder County. You can access his music on BandLab at BlazeK_solo project. Thank you for listening, and I assure you folks, it is better together.